Welcome to Fun and Fundraising, everybody, the podcast where we talk with people behind top nonprofit galas and signature fundraising events to showcase how they positively transform their communities. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, and today I am really happy and thrilled to have a extremely special guest on. So we have Laura Ward, and Laura is the founder, president, and CEO of the Houston Children's Charity. And the Houston Children's Charity has been around for about 30 years and is one of the state's best run and most highly impactful nonprofit organizations throughout Texas, especially as it deals with children's issues. So Laura is just an extreme wealth of knowledge, and I'm so thrilled to be talking with her today. And with that, Laura, welcome, and I am so happy to have you here today.
Thank you, Rob. I'm so happy to join, and I thank you for inviting me. I really do thank you. It's very wonderful to be able to get your word out, no matter when or how you do it.
I really appreciate that. Thank you, Laura. So share a little bit with our audience what the mission of the Houston Children's Charity is.
Our mission is to identify needs of special children in the community that existing organizations are not already identifying and taking care of. We like to say that we take care of the children who are falling through the cracks of the system. But if there's a program in place and it's doing a fine job of taking care of a need, we don't feel the need to adapt our own program or develop our own programs. So we look for the children who are falling through the cracks and we develop our programs accordingly.
Thank you for sharing that. And I love that, you identify where the needs are and you go for those needs. So you're not necessarily stepping on the toes of other organizations to allow them to do the work so that you can do the work. And I know that you founded this organization 29 years ago, I believe it was. And
Yes.
it very, your talk a little bit about that first fundraiser because it started very simply and it has just grown over the years. It's almost like a beautiful little seed that has grown into a giant, wonderful oak tree.
Well, I believe the events we do, and I think you're talking about our big gala, it has to grow to meet the need. The needs are growing exponentially. And so if your programs don't grow, and the arm that funds those programs doesn't grow every year, then you won't be able to keep pace. And we have found that we are better focused on one very large fundraising event a year because we operate with a very small staff than an organization that has something every month. We do have bed distributions every month, but that's like a machine, that just operates itself with volunteers. But we are better at that one big gala, and I love it. I just love doing it. It's exciting every year, and we love it.
So talk a little bit about that because that I mean it took a while for you all to get to the point where it's a
Oh,
multi-million-dollar event. I believe your very first fundraiser ever was a $5 spaghetti dinner, and it's just completely it's grown into another sphere since then. What have you found to be the secret to just steadily growing and increasing the amount that you're raising year after year, and the impact just gets wider and wider as you go.
it's so simple, Rob. It's one word. It's stewardship. It's stewardship. And I don't use that word loosely because I've been doing this for 33 years now, and I know what stewardship is. I know the time it takes to do it well. Uh, and we have over 70% return donors every year. And last year, and we've just now started on this year's event, I expect to have maybe 80% return. So it's the stewardship you do all year long. Uh, the task of finding new donors is so time intense that if you're a smart lady or a smart man, you keep the donors you've already found, their you develop their sponsorship, You expand their reach. You tell them other ways they can help the organization. And each year you get a little more out of them. That is so much easier to do than go out and find brand new sponsors every year. Now, do we do that? Absolutely. That's how we grow. But I will tell you the majority of our growth is provided by these same donors every year. And that's amazing. Most organizations would not say that.
That's fantastic. So it's really you get them in and then they go deeper and deeper and deeper into the organization over time, which I think is that's just amazing. And what piece of advice would you give to somebody looking to more deeply penetrate their own donor base so that they do encourage them to give a little bit more each year?
I would tell the generation that's doing it now to stop counting the minutes it takes to do it and consider the hours that you are saving by doing it. But I find when, I don't want to use the young or the old word, but I find when the younger fundraisers come to me and say, "Can we talk? Can you provide us some leadership and how to do this, how to do that?" You don't know how many organizations in town ask me to counsel them on doing their very first fundraising event. And I could make a whole career out of that. I've had to stop doing it because that takes an enormous amount of my time. But the one thing I note is they will come in and say, we spent 2 or 3 hours with this and this and that. They know how much time they spent with a sponsor or a potential sponsor. I have no idea how many hours in a year I spend with a potential sponsor, a current sponsor that I'm trying to develop. I have no idea because I don't count. But everybody is counting their time. One of the most important phone calls I will get for this year's event came in at 10:30 last night on my personal phone. And I knew the number, so I answered it. Time zone, they were on the West Coast. It was 8:30 for them, still very late. But I took that call and I was so grateful to have it to take. But a lot of people aren't going to take that call. So am I on call 24/7? Yeah, that's sort of old school. I love it. I'm happy to be on call 24/7.
I love that response for several reasons. One is that you're always available, and that shows how passionate you are about the cause. And so I just find that really incredible that you devote so much energy and you devote so much passion to it. The second thing is the not counting. Really what that I read that as is you are in the moment when you are with a donor, you are engaged and you're all in with them. You're not thinking about the 15 or 25 or 50 other things that are going on. You kind of put them, you check them at the door and you go all in with whomever you're with at the time. And there's something about developing relationships, and certainly since COVID, I think it's even more so, that's kind of been lost a little bit. And I love that you are leaning into that and you've gotten exponentially stronger fundraising results every year since COVID as a result of that.
Absolutely. Our growth since COVID has been at a higher rate than it ever was in our first 25 years. We have the last 3 years have been nothing short of amazing. We had a goal last year for our gala of $5 million because the prior year we had done 4.2. And when we got, you were there. And when we got to that 6.2, I could hardly announce it because I wasn't certain it was real yet. And I had the accountants behind the curtains and I kept looking and saying, "Show it to me on paper. I want to see it." And when I saw it, it was difficult to believe that $6.2 million had been brought in an evening. And yeah, where do you go this year? I have no idea, Rob. I have no idea. But that, that I know how to count. That's when I do count. So,
Well, you do have to manage those funds. So the money
yeah.
is important to count, but the time doesn't necessarily have to be counted.
No,
And
shouldn't
because you
be.
don't
It
count the
shouldn't be.
time, more money comes in. It's very
It
interesting.
really shouldn't be. But I will tell you, it's a generational thing. And my staff many other people's staffs, they don't get that concept yet. Uh, I have an incredible staff. I wouldn't get rid of one of them. But when it's 5 o'clock, they've got obligations and they need to leave. I try not to call my staff on weekends, but sometimes I have to, and some of them take it better than others. But the notion that you're on call 24/7 is so old school, and it's so nothing that anybody wants to do anymore or be a part of, that it's going to be gone when my generation is gone, and that notion is gone. And I get it. I get it. The world is fast. It moves at a fast pace, and you have to keep up. I get it.
Absolutely. And, those are all really, I'm glad you're bringing up those points because I do hope that we do get at some point a pendulum back to more relationship development that's more in person and less online because I think that connection really does elevate things. And in speaking of connections, you are probably one of the two or three best connectors I have ever met in my entire life in terms of
Oh
connecting
my
people.
gosh.
I mean, you
Well,
really are. And it starts with the board that you have. I mean, your board is a rock star board, period, end of story. And anyone should go to their site and see how many community leaders throughout Houston and frankly beyond are on this board. And my question for you is, what advice would you give to somebody looking to ask someone who's high profile to join their board?
put it in writing and put it in front of his face. Don't leave anything to the imagination. Don't assume anything you're going to say to this person is going to be processed with the intent that you have as you say it. Put board responsibilities in writing. Put it under their face and say, this is what it takes to be on this board, and you're a busy man. I'm not certain you can handle it. I'm not certain you will choose to make the time. But if you don't choose to make the time, a seat on the board is probably not a good fit because we have monthly board meetings. Monthly. Before COVID, we had every other month board meetings. And boy, the board members loved that. But you know what, Rob? I could not keep the board members engaged. My philosophy is that an informed board is an active board. An uninformed board will become disengaged. And I was having difficulty keeping the board members engaged. So I went back to a board meeting every month. Now that's a lot. That's 11 board meetings a year because we don't do, well, we have an annual meeting in Christmas. So that's a big, it's a big, big responsibility. And if you miss 3 board meetings, we have a meeting and we got to find out why. And if it's not going to change, be a supporter from beyond, but not on the board. And yes, we do ask board members to leave. We do.
I'm glad that what I love about that answer is that you want the people who are involved to be as devoted and passionate about this as you are. And
Absolutely.
that's really a good sign of leadership because you have a vision and you've made that vision happen. I mean, I just think that's amazing.
Well, and I find that most people think I'm too direct. A lot of people think that, really. Um, I don't think you can be too direct, but I've been told that by too many people to think I'm right and they're wrong. But I find that people want to know what you're really asking them. They want to know what you're asking them. So I'm a talker. I can talk around anything or I can talk to something. But if you put it on paper, you don't have to talk to it. You don't have to talk around it. It's on the sheet of paper. This is what we expect. Uh, our fundraising event, our gala, is the biggest thing we do all year, and every board member is expected to purchase a table or get a table sold. But that's the give and the get. You are responsible for one table on that floor, and our tables aren't inexpensive. So if a board member can't do that or would choose not to do that, then he's not engaged. He's not there for the long term. He may be passionate. I'm not going to say he's not passionate, but you don't have the level of passion we're looking for. So We had six founding members in 1996, and two are deceased, and the other founding members are still on our board. That's amazing.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
That's incredible. The fact that you can get someone to commit, 5 years seems to be a long time for a lot of
Hmm.
people to be on a board. 30 is, or pushing 30 is
Right.
just, that is amazing. And
It's totally amazing.
so what do you look for when you're trying to get somebody on the board? What do you look for? Like, what qualities are you looking for in that person?
I don't look for the qualities first. I look for my voids. I look at the board and I say, last year, for instance, no, 2 years ago, we had two bankers on the board and they were both gone. We were still banking at one of their banks. And I thought we need a strong, strong bank relationship. And so I went to the CEO of a new bank in town, 4-year-old bank, and he's now on our board. And he is so engaged. He is so passionate about what we do. He was so grateful to be on the board and rarely misses a meeting. And so I look for the voids on the board, um, because I need help in so many different areas. And I look for people who have the resource in the area that I am lacking. So then I look for the qualities in the person. Then I go look at a bunch of bankers in town and say, which banker would I want on the board? I would want this one. He's been on nonprofit boards before. He has a good track record. He's passionate. I know him. I happen to be a good friend. I love him to death. He'll be the best banker I can invite on the board. And he was. And he is. And I expect him to be here a while. We do not rotate board members. I don't believe in rotation, Rob, because I believe your strength is in your history. So we go for longevity and history, and founding members are lifetime members. Other members are there at a 1-year term. That way, if it doesn't work out, you don't have to have a big conversation, make a big ordeal about it. We tried it for a year, it didn't work out, not doing great. And at our annual meeting, we just vote everybody who's staying on back on the board. But we don't have rotation. I just have never believed in it. And I think that the strength of our organization has been built on our history.
Well, and I think that stability, for lack of a better word, there's probably a better word to say than that. That consistency, that's probably a better that word, has really allowed you to scale. And, a lot of what you all do, and I know you and I had a conversation before about, talking about what you all do with that money from the gala. And I kind of want to dive into that a little bit. So you all have two really fantastic events each year. And I know that you have, provided program support to over 300 agencies and 3 million children over the years. But I really
Right.
want to focus mostly on the two that you all do. And you do, they're spaced, 5, 6 months apart. So they're basically kind of mid-year, end year points. You have the toy distribution at Christmas time and Chariots for Children in May. So can you tell us a little bit about each program?
Well, the toy distribution comes 6 to 8 weeks after the gala, and that's a toughie. That's a toughie because we provide Christmas for 20,000 children in one day, and we prepare for 5 days. But the minute our gala is over, we have very little time to even wrap up and collect money, and we've already started on Christmas back in August when applications are being received. Now, the van distribution, Rob, is actually usually 3 times a year. It's
Okay.
usually in April or May, and then the beginning of the fall, and then right after the gala. And we usually give away 12 to 15 vans per distribution. At the gala this year, as you know, we were able to raise money for 66 wheelchair vans at a cost of $55,000 each. Do the math, it was over $3 million. And I just had this vision at that point in time that I want to have one large distribution and give 66 vans to 66 children in wheelchairs in one day in a 2-hour period. And we had our first production meeting yesterday, 2 hours. The general manager of the Post Oak Hotel, the general manager of Willie G's Seafood, There were not 14 of us around the table, and we didn't even scratch the surface of the logistical challenge that this will be, because these children will be sitting in their wheelchairs with their parents for 2 hours, maybe a little over. We've just got to run through it. But it's going to happen, and it's going to be wonderful. Will it be as smooth as silk like I like an event to be? Probably not. But will we be prepared for the snafus? We will. And so happy to let you know that First Lady Cecilia Abbott will be with us that day to make special remarks to the children about their lives and their wheelchairs, and nothing could be more fitting. So we're very happy to host the First Lady. And the mayor of Houston will be there to welcome everybody on behalf of the city. And as I'm rambling about this, maybe too much, we have vetted this program, and there's not another program such as this in the United States. Not one. There's not one program to equal this in the United States. So we are the only people doing this in the fourth largest city in America. And my vision is that every city in America should have a program like this one day, because every city in America has children who need wheelchair accessible vans. Every city, every single.
Abs Absolutely, absolutely true. And, I want to ask you about, because you have this, the 66 that you're giving away, but you also with the toy distribution, you're giving Christmas to 20,000 kids. So they're
20,000
they're
kids. Mhm.
20,000 kids. So it's
Yeah.
it's it's very they're very different programs. So can you talk a little bit about how the application and selection process is different for one that benefits a lot of children versus one that you have to be a little bit more, you have to be much more selective.
Right. They're so different. We um we have a wait list of over 100 children at all times to get a wheelchair accessible van, but the numbers aren't there like the numbers are there for a child who needs Christmas. But we start in August. We hire somebody just to process applications daily, and we will process every one of those applications. We look at the address. We look to make sure they have proof of guardianship. We look at the financial support information that has been sent. We make sure that these are children who certainly need the help. Um, and we don't feel like we get scammed, for a better word. But there may be some parents who come to get toys that are receiving toys from another agency, but it's okay. We give them 4 to 5 toys per child. It's nothing that's going to destroy any other program we have. But the parents come to the George R. Brown, they send in an application, they wait for social media to tell them we are open for applications for Christmas, and they start flooding in. And it's many of the same parents year after year. They depend on us until the child is no longer a child. And Rob, we give toys to 22, 23-year-old children. We do. We do.
Oh, really?
We
So,
absolutely do. And we will follow some of these kids from, we've been giving toys to some of these children since they were 10 and 12 years old, and now they're 22 or 23. Their mental capacity is diminished, and, they want a toy. They get a toy. They get books. They get whatever they want. The parents come to the George R. Brown to shop, and they know what their children need. And they line up outside of the convention center at 4 o'clock in the morning. They're wrapped around that convention center for hours waiting to get in. But it is a very, very finely tuned and well greased machine. And even though they wait, there is no chaos when they get in. And every year we try to make the wait less. And we have some ideas for doing that this year. And then there's the wheelchair accessible van program. Well, not every child needs one. So we get all the referrals for that program from caseworkers and social workers at the different hospitals and different facilities in town. They will just call and say, we have a child in a wheelchair and the family doesn't have proper transportation. So the due diligence for that program is minimal because they're being referred to us by the caseworkers who have done that due diligence. And the other program that we're not mentioning is the bed program. And we do that monthly. We give 150 beds away each month to children who are sleeping on the floor, don't have a bed. And it is estimated that there are over 250,000 children on any given night in Harris County and Montgomery County who do not have a bed.
Wow. I didn't
Yeah.
realize it was that high
Yeah.
of a total.
Yeah, that's a
Wow.
current estimate too. So we give those beds away every month. The parents come pick them up at Texas Mattress Makers, our wonderful partner, and we do it at their facility. And that's different because once a child gets a bed, we don't expect their name to reappear on the list. So that's a one-time deal. However, when we have floods or horrible disasters like that, we do get some of the same families coming back that need a bed because they lost their beds.
Wow. So, I mean, those are there's some that are very basic and there are some that are maybe mentally life-changing, and then there's others that are physically life-changing, like with the,
Right.
with the van. So you really do have, you're uplifting kids in a whole bunch of different ways.
We do. And again, we don't want to do it if somebody else is doing it. We would prefer to assist them, help them do it better. But we have not created one program that we know somebody else is doing. Since we've created our bed program, there are a couple of organizations, I think the Furniture Bank of Houston, that is now giving out new beds to children, not near as many as we do and not monthly, but a few people have picked it up. But when we started this bed program, we were truly the only game in town.
Wow. That's, the fact that you have that vision and you can see those things so clearly. How do you, like, when you're thinking about a new like, how do you go and gather the information to know for sure that you're doing something that nobody else is doing? Because I think a lot of
You
people struggle with that.
Right. You go to the shelters, you go to the organizations in town that are working with the shelters. You ask people to spend time with you. But I can't take the credit for our bed program. And I'd love to briefly tell you the story of how this program started in 2007. Back in the day when I had such a small staff, I was still answering the phones every Christmas at Christmas time with the two other staff members I had. And mothers would call and say, Miss Laura, our kids don't expect to get toys at Christmas. They never do. But we would love this year to be able to get a bed, just one bed, and we will have our two or three children sleep on the one bed together. Because they do that. They sleep vertically rather than horizontally, and they make it work. And I would say, oh, I'm so sorry. We don't have a bed program. We don't give out beds. And Rob, I'm embarrassed to say that I did this year after year. And finally, that light bulb did go off. And I thought, why are you telling parents you don't give away beds? Why aren't you giving away beds? Obviously, the need is there. They're calling you every year and not just at Christmas. They were calling all year long. So I went to the board and said, I think we need to have a bed program. And it was the most difficult program we have ever started because we didn't know where to buy the beds, where to buy the linens. We didn't know how to distribute them. We bought a truck with a hydraulic lift. Then we had to pay drivers and we had to make sure the drivers were trained. They would go to the homes to deliver beds. Well, the mom got a job that day and she went home to receive the bed. And then we'd have to go back. So it was the most difficult program we have ever started. And but now we have a partner in Texas Mattress Makers. We buy our beds from them at cost. We buy our linens from China. We get a great price on everything. And we finally figured it out, but it was not easy. It took several years. I'm embarrassed to say it took us 3 or 4 years to really get the program established because I couldn't figure out how to do it.
You know, there's a lot of great things that you gave in there, but I'm so glad you shared that, it wasn't perfect out of the box, but you
Oh,
kept
heavens
working
no.
at it to make it run really, really well.
It was so not perfect. It was so, I mean, we would stack a truck with 2 dozen beds, and the truck would come back to our little warehouse with 20 of the beds still in there. And we'd say, "What happened?" Well, nobody was home. So, we quickly learned that wasn't going to work. And it was a trial and error, and it was painful. It was painful.
Painful, but the end result is you have a really well-run program at the other end of it. And I really admire you for really sticking with it and really fulfilling that need and helping 150 kids every month have a bed that they can sleep on, which is just amazing.
Well, it is amazing, and when you see that our wait list is usually over 1,000 kids at all times. Right now, I think it's 1,100. The need is there. The need is there, and you dent it a little. You chip at it every month, but the day when we won't have a wait list of children waiting for a bed will be a pretty glorious day. Not sure we'll ever have that, but it would be a glorious day if we did.
It absolutely would be. And I know we're coming up on time here, but I always like ending chats with this question, and that is, what is one thing all successful nonprofit events have in common?
Leadership, good leadership. If your leadership is not strong, really sound, really cemented, really certain of the course, you will lose course. And I've seen it happen way too many times. I've watched a lot of nonprofits in Houston in my 34-year career shut their doors. And many times it was unavoidable, but so many times it was avoidable.
Well, that was a mic drop answer, and I can see why your leadership has made Houston Children's Charity just, it really is a gold standard in terms of how nonprofits are run, the impact that you do for tens of thousands of children every year in Houston. And, this is a conversation I've been looking forward to having for a very long time. So,
Oh,
Laura,
thank you, Rob.
thank you so much for the time today.
Thank you. I consider it an honor to chat with you.
Thank you. And the Houston Children's Charity, Chariots for Children, benefiting Houston Children's Charity, will be on May 19th, 2025, at the Post Oak Hotel in Houston, Texas. For more
Yes, sir.
information, please visit houstonchildrenscharity.org. And that will do it for this episode of Fun and Fundraising. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, reminding you to keep it fun, keep it interesting, and your guests will have a great time. Have a great day, everyone, and take care.